This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Bros and heroes. Gonna tell you about bros and heroes. Gonna tell you about
comic books, costumes, facts,
Boots!
and other stuff.
In this week's issue,
Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Issue 2.
Welcome into Bros, Foes, and Heroes. I'm Zach, joined as always by the magnificent Mr. Mike.
I
Wow.
think that's landed on a little thick, but sure, thank you.
Hold on, now,
Yeah.
we've done
Yeah.
how many
It's-
of these, and this is the
it's
first time
early.
you're going to tell me it's the...
You
Well,
know,
yeah,
it's early.
this is really early for us.
It is really early. It is 9:20 in the a.m.
Not like it's early for us to do things during the day, but it's just early for us to record.
to record, yeah.
And I feel like, I know at least for me, and I feel like maybe more so for Mike, is I open up more as the day goes on. So I'm very more just kind of like quiet and just to myself in the morning.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe that helps us
Do you-
stay on topic.
Do you watch the news or TV or anything in
Never.
the morning?
No.
Yeah. I get up and I turn on the news and I watch about 10 minutes of it.
So
And that's only because I'm dazed and I need coffee. So,
see, when I get ready, I'll listen to stuff on my phone. Like I'll
Yeah.
listen to podcasts or
Really?
audiobooks or stuff like I have things going like while
Yeah.
But a lot of times, and I mean, I find the news to be depressing.
sure.
And I'm already depressed about a lot of stuff in life. So
Well,
I'll catch up on it later, but I don't want to see it first thing in the day before I leave out kind of thing.
I turn it on CBS and that way nothing's depressing on there. Yeah.
Really?
They just do happy news. Yeah. Yeah.
I used to. and this-
Vladimir Putin has a cold.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
I know it's cheesy. There used to be an app that I followed, or like on Twitter. I don't remember what it was,
Yeah.
but it was where essentially that's all they did was report good news, or even if it was bad news, like they would report it in a way of where it was
Yeah,
just like,
exactly.
yeah, it's like, hey, this sucks, but you probably need to know this kind of thing. And it was like, oh, okay, the less sensationalized it is at times, sometimes it, I think you're able to process it better. But anyway.
So, do you remember the Naked News?
It was, I don't remember what country had it, but yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
when
it was
that
just
on.
people getting undressed as they're telling you the news.
Is that what you?
That's what it was. That's what I
watch.
watch every morning. Yeah,
Really?
just naked people telling me
you-
the news. But
But
they're
we don't
behind a
have it
desk, so it
here.
doesn't matter.
Wait, that makes it professional.
It's a
or-
very tall desk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just up to their neck. No, they look like a Wilson from
That's right.
Home
Yeah.
Improvement. All you can see is their
Hey
eyes.
there,
but-
neighbor.
but they
Vladimir
just-
Putin's got a cold.
But they just throw clothes over
that's
the fence.
it. You got it. It's like any movie from the 50s where a woman's getting undressed behind one of
just
those
yeah, they
screens and
toss it
throws
over,
those
yeah.
things over. Yeah.
So last week we dove into
Last week on Bros,
Foes and Heroes. We dove into a little bit of holiday cheer.
Yeah.
With a Woolworth Christmas
Woolworth.
ad / comic.
Lots of rubber toys.
There were a lot of rubber toys. We are going to have, I found two of those. So we're going to cover the one, we did the one from 1952. We'll do the one from 1953 for next week for our Christmas episode because it makes sense for us to talk about Christmas stuff on Christmas. So we have another Santa adventure thanks to Woolworths coming up.
Woolworth.
Which, by the way, I noticed that we have a place that's called Woolworth Sweet.
Yeah,
I don't think that's related, though, is it?
it is. It's where the Woolworths.
Is that
used
where
to
it was,
be.
honestly?
Mhm. Yeah.
So look at that. I learned
Yeah.
something from
Yeah.
this book. I saw
Yeah,
it when
we
I
used to
passed it
have
the other day.
Yeah, we used to have a Woolworths here back in the 1901s.
At least the 50s, because that's when those books
Yeah,
came
something
up.
like that, probably. Yeah.
But what we're doing today is a bit of a departure from that because we're going to go from that, awesome, cheery
Yeah.
holiday goodness and go back to something a little bit more darker and demented, which
I
is,
like it.
yeah, I love too. The second issue of Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees came out. And we covered the first one a couple months back after it came out.
Been a little bit, yeah.
But this comic, written and illustrated by Patrick Horvath,
Thanks, Pat.
it's been really fun, really interesting, and just kind of, I like to think, I'm not taking this as my own description from it. I saw it somewhere and I think it fits, but it's the busy world of Richard Scarry meets Dexter in a sense.
Yeah.
So, just a recap of issue
Disney
1.
World of Richard
But that's
Scarry.
what it.
I know. I want to see that worm crawl out of that apple and kill somebody.
That's the next movie once it goes into
Uh-huh.
the public domain. Like,
Yeah. Starring Jonathan Major.
is he? Yeah. Okay. So, just a recap of last time we dove into this
I think
show.
he might be in trouble.
I didn't know if he was still alive.
Jonathan Majors?
Jonathan
Kang.
Major. I'm thinking
Yeah.
of.
Lee Majors.
Yes, I
Is who you're thinking of. Yeah. Fall
oh my
guy.
goodness, yeah. No, I was thinking of Lee Majors.
Not Lee Majors.
Jonathan. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Jonathan Majors.
That
as
makes a lot
the
more
Richard Scary Worm.
Why? Like the voice?
I don't know. No, these are real people in costumes.
We're not having another Cats debacle. Let's
I
not
am
do that.
all about the practical effects. Get in that
okay.
worm suit, Majors.
So our main character in Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees is a bear named Samantha, or
Right.
Sam for short.
Sure.
And we find out that Sam lives in this very peaceful town called Woodbury. It'll come up again. I'll correct myself there
Sure.
when it comes up. And that it's this very peaceful town that you would think of just, everybody's been there forever. It's like,
Where everybody knows your name.
yeah, what's Andy Griffith?
Mayberry.
There you go. That's what it is. It's like just the wholesome Americana town you can think of, full of anthropomorphic animals. Because that's the thing about this. Why I said the busy world of Richard Scarry. If you haven't looked at it, when you look it up, you'll notice that it's all anthropomorphic
Yeah.
animals.
If you want to see something that kind of matches that whole Mayberry thing you brought up, and it's a little off, SCTV a long time ago did like a Mayberry thing, but it's serious. Like it was like a drama, but it was set in the Mayberry town.
That is
it's very
hilarious.
good. It's very good.
I'll have to go back and look that
Yeah.
up then. But we do find out that everything's not like it seems.
Floyd's a freak. I'm just telling you. Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, sorry, it's only 30 years ago. Sorry.
But we find out that everything's not as it seems in this perfect little town, as our main character has a dark secret. She likes to kind of drive, to the city, which is 2-3 hours away,
Yeah.
and find and kill victims. She's a serial killer.
She lives in that little like Golden or Gilmore Girls town.
Yeah, that's
Right, that
Starry
kind of
Hollow.
thing. Yeah,
The
yeah,
Mayberry. That's why
Sure,
we're yeah.
sure.
Starry Hollow works.
But
there.
then she drives to what?
Like
town?
the big city. It doesn't. It
Does
doesn't
it
give-
just say big city?
It just calls it the city.
I like that.
So yeah, it's just kind of like a I guess
Porksville.
Yeah, like upstate New York, and then you
Sure.
drive into New York City
Manhattan,
itself.
yeah.
And she does it because, she always picks random people, does it not to be caught. She has this whole very gruesome process, but it like helps her find her sinner. Is what we find out. But we find out that she is a deranged killer who also, when she's not killing people, owns a hardware store in this quaint little town, and she loves keeping things there as peaceful as possible.
Perfect cover.
The town is turning 200, I think. They have a giant parade for it. When it is discovered through an accident, remember the mast of the ship
On the
kind of
float.
snaps off
Yeah.
of the mayor's float,
Yeah.
who is a turtle.
Yeah.
Birdie is his name. And it reveals that an old goat who we met earlier had been murdered and kind of just like
Yeah, kinda like
strewn up
crucified.
there.
Yeah.
And now the whole city has seen this.
Yeah.
So the whole city knows that, or town, I guess, since it's small, it is, that
Bird.
there is a killer
Yeah.
on the loose kind of amongst them.
Sure.
Um,
Because that doesn't just happen.
no.
You don't just whoops, I got crucified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it kind of sends everybody there into a panic,
Hmm.
and it creates a sense of panic in our main character, in Sam,
Yeah.
because she's afraid now that because somebody else was kind of stupid enough or just sloppy enough to do this, she's going to get caught.
Sure.
And also, they're messing with her little like control. Like,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
So that recaps what we have going on in issue 1 before we get here into issue 2. And I will say I love the cover. Like these covers have been great. It's a pig walking by a butcher shop, and we'll get into the woman is one of the main characters in this issue. And the pig is staring into the butcher shop,
Yeah.
and it like has like a
The
pig's
woman
head.
is the pig.
The woman is
Yeah,
the pig,
yeah,
yeah.
That's
and-
not a political statement.
no, it's anthropomorphically drawn here, latte in hand. And she sees like
Yeah.
other pig heads, and so it's like her steering in with like this weird sense of uneasiness.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool.
That's
like,
very
all of
cool.
these are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
let's-
don't know why they would have that in that town.
I don't. Well, we also talked about how some animals aren't
Yeah.
That's it happens again here,
Like
like
Pluto.
blatantly. So I don't know if it's a thing or if it's just like it's a world where some animals are and some aren't kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just like I wonder if it was kind of drawn as animals to get by certain things, obviously, as a comic,
Yeah, could
and
be.
it fits, and so you can still have. But either way, it's an enjoyable story. We'll go ahead and get into
yeah.
issue 2 of Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, and it opens. I love this too, how the inside covers like the newspaper to
Yeah.
cover the event of local found slain and grisly
Yeah.
murder scene.
But it's also got your credits.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
got your
that's
credits
cool.
and your IDW thing at the bottom. So really cool.
Yeah.
We open up to see that
IDW. What is that?
that's the publisher.
Oh.
So
okay.
like
All right.
DC, Marvel,
Yeah.
IDW is the publisher on
Huh.
this.
I wonder what does that stand for?
I honestly don't know right offhand. I just always know them as IDW.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Don't worry about it. I
My
just
comic
didn't
book
know.
knowledge is lacking there. We show, and for me, a lot of this was kind of very, I don't know, it seemed relatable in kind of being around in a small town for stuff, but I feel like a lot of it's kind of even relatable here as we live in a city that's not necessarily like massive, but we still have some kind of like small town qualities about it. They're having a meeting in the church after this. Like
Okay.
everybody's huddled together. So it's like, hey,
Safe space.
yeah, everybody in the community, let's get together. And it's like, she's the mayor, or I guess not the mayor, but whoever. Oh, yeah, it is the mayor. Sorry, is testing the mic. And she's, and she hands it to the Bloodhound, who is the chief of police, which would make sense. But I just love there's a moment where she hands it to him after she tests it. And he's like, oh, I'm not really too good with these things. Can everybody hear me if I talk loud? Kind of like
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
moment in the
Yeah.
comic where it's just kind of,
It's very humanized.
yeah, exactly.
Honestly, yeah.
And so it relates to him. And essentially he just tells them like, hey, everybody by now, you all know what happened. Everybody saw, the body or know that we found our librarian Martin dead.
Yeah.
This is the first time anything like this has happened in like 40 years. Like, but
40 years.
It's just a reminder of like,
Sure.
things are still scary here. Even
Sure.
as perfect as they are everywhere else, it
Yeah.
can happen to us anywhere. He says, we're all in a state of shock, but just to help us all, we're going to start a curfew. Like, everybody out, it's starting tonight, 9 p.m. Everybody stay inside. And he's like, we've got a killer at large. So everybody kind of be like, he's doing his best to just kind of prep them for everything that's coming. To then we hear, I also want to stress, he's talking to them, that I also want to stress that there's a chance that the killer could be one of us too. Because he's telling them it could be somebody coming in.
Sure.
Could also be somebody local. And he goes, but, and why he says that, the pig that we met at the beginning of our cover, we found out her name is Cherry Gherkins.
Cherry Gherkins. Sure.
People do not like Cherry in town because she
Okay.
stands up and says
Well, number one, her
immediately,
name's Gherkins.
well,
So,
that's her
yeah.
last name. I don't know.
Yeah.
She just stands up and she goes, I want to know why you haven't already arrested Birdie, the turtle.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was on his float.
Yeah.
Why hasn't it already been arrested?
Yeah.
You're not doing your job. Like this is all BS. Like she just points at him.
Sure.
And he's like, hey, I understand that you're upset. Let's just calm down. Let's not lose ourselves.
Yeah.
And he goes, we have suspects. We're going through. We're checking them. She essentially tells him, I'm not scared. I'm angry. Like somebody has to stand up to these people.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything. Come on, Howard. She grabs her husband, who's an owl,
Howard the Owl.
who I love his face where he's like, oh man, because
Well, he's
she's
also-
making a scene kind of.
He's also got a gigantic head.
He does.
Yeah.
But she's making a scene, and she's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
as he's pulling it, she's like, "This was just a waste of our time." As she leaves, and I love the mayor and the chief of police. They're just sitting there like, "Oh, Cherry freaking Gherkins, man!" Like they already know that she's just.
She just makes a stink everywhere
Yeah.
she goes. Yeah.
So
She's a Karen.
she is, and I think that she's referenced to as that later on too. But she's making a stink and kind of creating unease throughout the town.
Wait, what's her Cherry?
Cherry,
Okay.
Cherry Gherkins.
All right.
We finally see Sam as her friends. You remember the elderly mouse woman and
Yeah.
her son. That's her
Yeah.
best friend.
Yeah.
They ask if they want somebody to walk home with her, and she's like, "No, I'm good." But it's time for her to think more, and she's trying to figure out where can I find, or what are the steps for me to go about to find who this person is. She realizes to herself, I need to go talk to Birdie. the turtle whose float, our dead goat was found
Did you
on.
say Birdie was the mayor?
Birdie, I thought Birdie was the mayor at the beginning.
Okay.
He might not have been. Birdie
Okay.
is the turtle though, whose
Yeah.
float.
Yeah, it was their float.
So see, this is what I'm talking about with the anthropomorphic.
There's a dog there.
There's
and
a dog that's a
bird.
dog and a bird that's a bird,
Yeah.
but Birdie and Sam are still.
And the dog only says arf arf. He can't speak.
We see though that Birdie has a nice little shiner
Mm-hmm.
on his eye, like somebody's gotten to him. Sam shows up to ask him questions, but in doing so, spooks him, and he does the whole like head in the shell to get away from her
Yeah.
because he's spooked there, which I thought was kind of funny. She is nice to him and kind of, gives him a sucker. But she's just the thing here that I get from it is like everybody's obviously been after Birdie and accusing him of something that he hasn't done. But he's so afraid because he has to give himself a pep talk to go out to throw away the trash, is what we're seeing. Like
Right.
he's very kind of, does not want to go out of his house. So Sam talks
really
to
blame
him.
him.
Yeah, Sam talks to him and is able to kind of soothe him out. And she's like, "Hey, I know you talked to the cops, but sometimes when I'm doing the dishes, like ideas come to me that I didn't even think about."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, well, now that you mention it," and he thinks back to when they were working on the float the night before.
Right.
And we're introduced to Melody Davis, who is a cat,
She's a Siamese cat.
who was helping him with the float. And she comes in carrying a giant thing of lavender, and she sneezes as she does. And Birdie tells the cat, Melody, like, "Hey, are you okay?" And she's like, "I didn't realize I'd be so allergic to this.
Yeah.
Like, it's really getting to me." And he goes, "Don't worry about it. I'll go ahead and finish it up. You go home."
Okay.
And then he said that she left, and he's sitting there working, and he hears a sneeze again. And he goes, "Bless you, Melody." And then there's nothing. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Melody?" So he realizes, he's like, "I thought she had already left.
Yeah.
Maybe she had hung around." And that's what Sam says, is maybe she was still just hanging around to wait for you to leave. Or maybe there was somebody else there also allergic to lavender.
Right.
So she has at least, it's a small clue, but she has a clue that something else has happened. She decides to go back into town. And as she is going into town to go to her hardware store that she owns, she runs into the Bloodhound cop,
Okay.
who just asks her, like, "Hey, quick question. I heard that, you went up to the city the other day." Oh, they do give it a name. He's like, "Just backtracking Martin's last couple days, said that he came in asking about something. You met with him and then you went up to the city." She's like, "Yeah, I went to Centerville. I do it every month or so. A couple shops. I kind of like to go there,
Yeah,
this and that."
Sure.
And she goes, "But I thought Martin could have told you that," which is her assistant there.
Yeah.
And the Bloodhound gang.
Bloodhound gang.
The Bloodhound goes, "Oh no, they could have just clarifying some things."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and we see a look. I love that because when he's like, "Well, I appreciate the help. I'll be back," and she's just anytime sheriff, but you can see the look on her face that
Yeah,
she's very
giving me
annoyed.
A lot of bear side eye.
Yeah. We find out that a lot of people are coming into the hardware store buying locks, buying bars, like just anything they can do to secure their home where they are. It has created a panic
This
throughout
is
the entire
exactly
town.
what would happen. in a
Exactly.
small town. Yeah.
And so it's created a panic everywhere. And then we get a run-in with Cherry Gherkins yet again. As she straight up parks in the middle of the street to run in to grab her latte.
Yeah.
Um,
I know that woman.
Yep. And like there's a part where like there's somebody parked behind her and he's like, "You can't do that. You can't just leave your car." And she's like, "Yes, I can, idiot." Like she's just
Idiot.
yelling at him.
Wow.
Like she's just,
Idiot.
nobody likes her. Sam sees her over there, walking into the coffee shop, and she asks her mole assistant or, coworker Martin, "You need any coffee?" He's like, "No, I still got the pot
Mole
going."
assistant.
She goes, "What about a hot chocolate?" He's like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great."
Oh, moles love hot chocolate.
They do. She
Should see them dance when you pour hot chocolate right down their hole. Something.
wow. Okay.
It's a mole hole.
A mole. I see what you're
Yeah.
saying. Now. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The mole hole.
Yes.
I'm reminded of. There's an old joke that is silly, but my dad told it as a kid, and I still remember it. There's a family of moles. Mom. I know this is what you wanted to hear, a joke in the middle of
I
this.
do.
A mom, a dad, and a baby mole.
Okay.
They live right outside this, nice country farm. And
Okay.
one morning, early in the morning, the farmer and his wife wake up early and they start making breakfast.
Okay.
And just the smell
Sure.
of just
Smells
right
great.
from the kitchen
Yeah.
just wafts out and comes to the outside. And, the father wakes up first. He smells something in the air. He climbs out, sticks his head out of the hole. He's like, oh, pancakes. Oh, man, I love
Yeah.
pancakes.
Pancakes.
Then the mom, she smells like she goes, and warm syrup and bacon, like the both of them. And the baby tries to come up and can't get through. I fucked it up. Anyway, the baby tries to come up and can't get through and can't get past the two of them. And he goes, well, I don't know about you guys, but all I can smell is molasses. I realized I said
that's good. I like
syrup.
that.
I realized I said syrup trying to think of
Yeah.
something else, though.
That's
but
okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
So there you go.
I like that. All I can smell are molasses.
So Sam is going to go across the street to.
When did he tell you this? Like, how old were you?
I'm pretty sure I overheard it.
Oh,
Like, it
okay.
wasn't like he told me directly.
All right.
Probably like 6. I don't know. My
Kids,
dad was
gather
there.
around.
Let me tell you dirty jokes.
Let me tell you the story of the moles.
Well,
He liked those jokes?
not, he like dirty mole jokes.
Dirty mole jokes, mostly. Yeah. Sure.
Oh man. So
You stop telling those camel jokes. Only mole
mole
jokes in
jokes.
this house.
So Sam is going to go over, and it seems like she wants to confront Cherry Gherkins.
Yeah.
And I think that this is as good a place as any for us to go ahead and take a break real quick. And when we get back, things are about to amp up for the
All
rest of
right.
the issue here on Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. So we will be right back after this.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you'd better go in disguise. For every bear that ever there was, every teddy bear who's been good is sure of a treat today. There's lots of marvelous things to eat and wonderful games to play. Beneath the trees where nobody sees, they'll hide and seek as long as they please. That's the way the teddy bears have their picnic.
All right. And so now we are back. Oh, sorry. I didn't do what Mike likes to do. Welcome back in.
Welcome back
As
into the show.
I always tell Mike, and he's going to get tired of the joke eventually, that it's the welcome in gang every time
Sure.
I start there. Because
The
I don't know
welcome in
how
gang.
else to start the show aside from
No,
welcome
it's
in.
it's perfect. It's great. I just made an observation one
You know,
time.
we've talked about other things
Yeah.
and other shows in the future.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best at whatever I do next to not
Not
say
do a
welcome
welcome
in.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's my goal.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're being pleasant to people. It's fine.
So
You can say, "Get the hell out of here. We're back."
that's true. All right. So back to Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, issue 2. And Sam is walking into the coffee shop where we get to see Cherry Gherkins yelling at the barista.
Oh,
Why would we have to go through, or why do we have to go through this every time? Just give me my latte and I can go. I don't have time to wait. I'm double parked.
oh,
Because she did it.
yeah,
Like, she's the reason she's double
yeah,
parked.
sure.
And like everybody else in line is like, come on, like they're all waiting. Like she's holding up everybody in line, and she's like, I'm telling you guys that if you would just let me order from home, this wouldn't be a problem. Like she's blaming them for why she's holding up, and all. Some of it might be
She
fine,
got a point,
but the barista, you can tell just by the
but
font.
not to park in the street.
Yeah, just by the font and the way
Yeah,
that they draw,
yeah.
she's like, of course, ma'am. Yeah, like
Yeah.
she's
Every damn day
every
with this
day she
woman.
gets berated by
Yeah.
Cherry.
Yeah.
And she's just like, yes, ma'am. Of course, ma'am. And Cherry just keeps yelling and yelling. And she's just like, I don't have to put up with this. I can take my business somewhere else. Like, just still yelling at the barista. Of course, ma'am, as she's working on it. And
I love
then,
the pearls around her neck. They're just so tight.
yeah. And then she's like, and don't bother with that stupid flower on top. It's a waste of time and it never looks good. Like, she is just yelling at them.
Dang.
I do give it to Sam, though, who goes into that. She talks about, man, I just saw Birdie and the black eye he had. Must have, somebody must have hit him pretty hard there in the head. And then, she's like, poor little guy. It must have been some hothead, too. Like, she's right behind Cherry,
Cherry.
like, just poking at her.
Cherry's a very sweaty
the more angry
Pig lady.
the angrier she gets, the sweatier
Sweatier
she gets.
Yeah, of course.
And she's just like, it must have been some hothead who jumped to conclusions, or to think that he could have done anything about that. And she just goes, whatever the hell he told you is a lie. And like she turns around and she's about to snap because she's like, oh, that's a really short temper there, Cherry. Were you the one, who killed Martin that night? And that's when we get listen, you furry bitch. Like she's just angry. So, and she just goes off and yelling, say another word, and I'll sue you to hear it, yada, yada. So
She says the big bad
she
word.
goes, so F off. And Cherry shoves Sam, like pushing her down, basically telling her, we don't have to be bullied by you guys anymore.
Yeah.
Like as a pig, you would think, obviously, not necessarily a predator,
No.
more often the victim. So it's her, in a sense. I at least understand, obviously don't get the way she's doing it, but it's the reasoning is at least a little understandable in a sense.
Well, there's some history. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess to say that. And so she goes and she pushes down and she goes, or the barista tells her that her latte's ready and she grabs it. And then she's like, ma'am, you have to pay for that. And she's like, no, I don't have time for this BS. And she just kind of leaves.
Wow.
So Cherry has pushed Sam down and surprised the hell out of Sam too.
Yeah.
So then we cut to Cherry at home with her husband, Howard the Owl, and they're watching the news. And it's one of those very, sensationalized reports of like, tragedy struck the quaint town of Woodbrook today. That's not Woodbury, Woodbrook.
Yeah. It's a lemur telling you that.
Oh, you're right. It is a lemur. And so Cherry passes her husband and she's just like, every time something like this, comes up, the vultures or, the way you looked around.
It stopped.
It did.
The hum is gone.
We talked about that before. Nobody knows. We talked
that's
about
true. We didn't think
it
it
was
was
just
a hum.
between.
Yeah, sorry. Now people just think I'm nuts.
Yeah. Oh well.
The hum is gone.
I'll leave it in when we edit, so
Yeah,
it'll be fine.
please do.
It'll just confuse them.
I like
even
her
more.
shirt. Think pig.
Yeah, but she's just on them like every time something big comes up, like they just come here like vultures to like sensationalize and take advantage of us to
She's
scare us
not wrong
locals.
with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And she's putting on her shirt and she goes, and they want you to think anybody could be a victim instead of holding people responsible for their own actions. And he's like, curfew or not? Like because she's getting ready to go like run.
Yeah.
And her husband's like, curfew or not? Like there's still a murderer out there. You need to be careful.
Yeah, exactly. Sure.
And she's like, oh, you're such a pushover. But like, not like me. But she's like, they'll walk all over you if you let them. That's why I married you. And she walks over and like kisses him, kind of just like, you get to see like Sherry, or I keep calling her Sherry, but Cherry is obviously mean and just a lot.
How do they copulate?
It's not brought up.
Oh, okay. It's an owl and a pig.
But we do see a nice little relationship. Like we do see that there's at least a little bit of humanity in
I got you. Sure.
between the two of them. And he seems that.
Well, he's wise.
Well, exactly.
'Cause he's an owl.
But even through all of it, like he seems to obviously really care for her.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So she tells him, you'd be lost if you didn't have me watching out for you. I love you, sweetie. Just kind of like a cute little moment.
Sure.
And then she leaves to go running. And then she says, if some idiot decides to mess with Cherry effing Gherkins, it'll be the last mistake they make. As she starts. So she's just like, she stood up for herself. She's feeling good.
Yeah.
I can do this.
She's empowered.
So she's on her walk and she passes by the school and she hears something and it's back.
The hum's back. Yeah. Hopefully you guys can't hear the hum.
And she hears something and it's that spooked kind of hello?
Spooked.
Spooked.
Oh, sorry.
Hello? Like as she looks down the alleyway
Yeah.
and she doesn't see anything. But there's
Starts getting a little
leaves
sweaty.
blowing by. Yeah.
Yeah. Leaves coming by.
So she picks up her pace a bit and
Yeah.
she walks around. Like the car kind of drives by and it freaks her out a bit. She's she's a little nervous. And she
Sure.
runs into
She should
somebody
be.
and she goes, oh, like she's surprised. And she goes, didn't expect to find anyone else out here tonight. Well, I'm glad to see that, there's somebody else out here who at least has and that person pulls out a knife. As she says, balls, which is funny just because it says balls.
Yeah.
But, and then afterwards she goes, listen, pal, I don't scare easily, so you can F right off. And she points her hand out and swoop, and the knife cuts off 4 of her little piggy fingers.
4 of her fingers.
To which she takes off scared running.
Sure.
Here's something I should have pointed out earlier that I kind of liked about this issue before I get into the story itself.
They don't have hooves.
Is the speech bubble itself.
Yeah.
The way they did it, because it's just, like, oh my God, over and over again. But I love the way that they made it work there.
Well, it flows inside the speech bubble and like all the way up
It
to
fills
the
the
things,
entire
like it's
space.
more and more and more.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my God.
And
oh
it's
my
so
God.
panicked and freaked. I love
Yeah.
that. There was also another scene. This was weird. Like, speech bubbles and just the ballooning are so kind of important things that you don't notice until they do cool things with them.
Sure.
Oh, to show the honk of like how
Yeah.
it just kind of distracting it was. Look, they have it go over the speech
Over
bubble.
panels
And like
the
it's
bubbles.
it's like, so I don't like, it cuts off the
Yeah.
word. Like that's
That's cool.
a very smart kind of decision because it's distracting even to read.
Sure.
And so it's things like that I found really cool.
Yeah,
But
that is cool.
so she runs.
Just in the way that the story flows.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
So
Makes
she
it kind of cinematic.
very much so. So Cherry is running now, holding her hand that's now missing 4 fingers, looking for help. Just she climbs up a fire escape somehow. She's yelling, "Help me, help me!" And she goes to like find a door and it's locked. So she bursts through the window. Like she has a lot of like, I got to get away from this.
Yeah.
And she runs, like she crashes down, and she's in a lot of pain. But she noticed, like, I can't stay down. I got to get up. They're coming. Very much like a horror movie style, except it's not like, the one where it's you see somewhere it's the victim of like, oh, and they make all decisions.
Yeah.
It seems like she's like, no, I got to keep going. And she's pushing through a lot.
Sure.
She gets up and she's running down a hall. And then there's stairs that she's coming down. And you hear a stomp, stomp, stomp.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see a handle stick out in front of her foot.
Oh, yeah, an axe handle.
A axe handle, and she trips over the handle
With her
and
bloody stump.
collapses down to the floor. And as she's with a giant thud, and as she looks up, you see the feet with somebody sitting there holding that axe handle that was used. We don't see who, we just see the feet. And they do a good job too, because, well, but wait. So, and they just look up and please, like, and then don't. And then I love the way that they show it, because it's just don't, slunk.
Yeah.
And you can tell by
She
the
just
change in
goes
the
white.
face. Yeah. That it happened without showing any of the. It's different
Yeah,
from.
it's not super graphic.
It's different from what we got the first issue, which was
where
so.
she quartered up that person. Yeah.
So we got extremely graphic, and now we get just as graphic and just as hard hitting in 3 panels here. Just very well done.
Yeah.
So then we cut to the next morning. I also liked how, again, it's small things. You can kind of tell the difference between night and day as it splits
Sure.
the coloring on the page
That's
there.
very smart.
So the raccoon, I guess, principal,
Okay.
dean, whatever you want to call,
Sure.
shows up at Woodbrook Elementary. And he runs into another badger who's like, lovely morning today. And they're, just exchanging pleasantries.
Yeah. The badger who is walking a dog.
He was walking a dog.
Yeah.
And then we get, as he walks and unlocks the door, you see a horrified expression on his face.
Yeah.
And we get these little, they're like pieces of notebook paper kind of that look like a diary. And it's just dialogue from Sam.
Right.
So, I don't know if it's supposed to be in a diary, but it's
Right,
her
sure.
doing it. And it says, when the news spread about Cherry, you could feel it in the air. Like the pressure just dropped. I'm going to read her little thing and then I'll. And the tornado was right around the corner, because what we see is he immediately runs out, blows his whistle, and we get to see of what he's walked into. And it's Cherry's head on a spike
Oh, wow.
with a bucket full of,
Her guts.
yeah, and it just says head of the class smeared in blood behind her on there.
Yeah.
Like just a very just horrific looking scene.
Well, I got to say, if anybody deserved it, it might have been her.
Maybe. And then it cuts to another newscast of where it's like, another gruesome detail. And we see Birdie, who is, even though obviously she's the one who gave him the shiner, like he is watching the news horrified and petrified.
Right,
still.
sure.
Because we see that, like, that's not.
Well, he's got to think that everybody's going to start cluing in on him.
Maybe,
at this
yeah.
point.
And you can tell his dog's even worried about how he's reacting. And then it shows to, I'll just read, another gruesome day here in the village of Woodbrook, with another victim and killer on the loose, the people want to know who would be capable of such brutal act and when they will be stopped. It shows like the back of her cutting the scene, and then it cuts back. It looks like they're at the church again.
Yeah.
Or at least, or no, I'm sorry. It's not. They're there.
It's like a press conference kind of thing.
Yeah, well,
right?
yeah,
Or they're filming the reporter.
They're filming the
Everybody's
report
behind the
behind
lines.
behind the lines. And Howard says, who is Cherry's wife,
Yeah.
with a sheriff like this, maybe we'd be better off without one.
Ooh.
And the rest of the townspeople just say, yeah, and they're cheering him on.
Chicken
so
says yeah.
we have anarchy amongst the townspeople, a second townsperson dead, and no idea still who it is.
Well, this is a very truthful trope, though. Like, think of Jaws or anything like that. Once they get the news, the whole town just kind of turns on whoever's in charge.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we're going to continue to do this series because
Yeah.
I have
It's a good
enjoyed it
series.
so much.
Yeah, it's cool.
Also, I like the next issue. We talked about Melody Davis. We
Yeah.
don't exactly know what it is.
Yeah.
She's there, and I love the way it gives. It's like a half view of her,
Yeah.
and there's somebody laying in the bed whose hand is limp off
Looks
the
like
side.
they're dead, yeah.
So, it's obviously
It's
that
cool
could
looking.
be anything,
Lots of shadows.
but it does
all
give a
kinds of-
nice little tease.
Yeah,
Yes, I
very
just
nice.
love. It's so good.
Very well done art. Yeah.
The alternate cover also very like.
Well, the original cover is by Patrick Horvath, and the
Oh,
alternate cover
is by
Riley Rossmo.
Riley Rossmo,
Rossmo.
and it's like Sam with a knife coming out of the pig's mouth. It is really, but it kind of looks like a Professor Pig from Batman kind of pig.
Yeah,
instead.
sure.
But yeah, so that was issue 2. I think issue 3 we won't get to until the new year, probably sometime in January or February. But still, a lot to look forward to. Just really fun, really exciting. I know we kind of. I gave you the rundown of the story, but there's still so much more that's in there, obviously, with all the dialogue and stuff. And there's other kind of underlying stories. It's just really good, really well done by everybody. I also, I'll be honest, I don't mention the letterer sometimes just because I don't want to butcher the name.
Yeah.
But I brought it up of just how well it was done in here
Yeah,
that I feel like I
yeah.
need to.
It's a very well
So,
put together
it was,
presentation.
Yeah, so Hassan Asmani Alau, I could be wrong, but still, I apologize. It just everything about this book is fantastic.
Yeah.
So it deserves all the credit it gets. But still, if you haven't, I'd say go check it out. The first 2 issues are out, and I have enjoyed both of them really just a lot. So
Oh, by
I
the
can't
way,
recommend it enough.
hang on one second. Let me. I had some information for you.
Oh, Mike has information
Yeah.
for me. While he does that,
give
I'll
me a
go ahead
second.
and remind you. Next week we'll go back into holiday stuff with the Woolworths book. Yes, sir.
Ideas and Design Works. That's what IDW stands for.
Ideas and Design Works. There you go. I do know that they make. I'm pretty sure it's IDW has these like artist editions,
Yeah.
or artisan editions of collections they have that I really want. And what it is it's like they've found the markdowns and like made like the giant originals that the artists would have like made copies on. So like Kirby's, they have whole comics collected
Oh,
where
really?
it's his notes in the margins.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
it's without all
Yeah.
it's in black and white, like no coloring.
Yeah.
But they do that for like a bunch of different artists and stuff. So it's really cool to see and actually do. So I'm pretty sure it's IDW who has a lot of cool things like that. Infographics Comics has a lot of cool things too.
It doesn't say what Melody Davis does, right?
No, we don't know yet.
She's just helping, and she
She's
tears
just-
up and she sneezes.
So she could be.
My guess is she's like
I think she's a red herring.
yeah. I think that she works like in an old folks home or something. I think that's what that picture was.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I don't care at all. I think.
Oh,
I look
no,
at it,
I'm just saying that's my best
no.
guess.
No,
Yeah.
I think I'm with you there too. I think
Yeah.
my guess makes me think that as well.
The nice thing about this comic is besides the little promos, there's no ads in these
No,
things
not at all.
anymore.
No.
Are there in normal
Yeah,
comics?
yeah, there
there?
are at times. It depends on what it is. A lot of them are
What
also.
did that one cost?
This one cost $4,
Oh, okay.
$3.99, but that's actually on the cheaper end.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's one of the cheaper. I bought Dynamite did Darkwing Duck, like they redid Darkwing Duck, and I'm always a Darkwing Duck fan. But I also got it too
You're a
because
Darkwing Duck fan.
Dude, yeah. My mom made a homemade Darkwing Duck costume for me for
Very
Halloween
nice.
when I was like 5.
True.
I'll have to hunt down the picture. But I remember picking that up partly because, like I liked Darkwing Duck, but also because it was like $2 an issue. Like
Yeah.
sometimes I'll pick things. Oh, that's what Mark Millar, his nightclub about the vampires was only $2. And
Oh,
so
wow,
like I
really?
bought that whole series. Like that was part of it. It was kind of like, hey, I wrote this, story and it's affordable. Because most comics, just regular paperbacks right now, like DC Marvel, depending on what you get, it'll either be $4 or $5 by itself. Then they like to sell the variants and the
For
more
more.
hard stock.
Yeah.
It's like the card stock kind of.
Right.
And that adds like another $1 or $2. So I could pick up one issue of 26 pages of like, and I had like Wonder Woman 1,
Yeah.
like $7, $8 for, yeah.
Yikes.
So,
I had no idea.
yeah.
I think last time I bought comics, they were under $1.
So I do a lot of digital stuff now. Like I prefer to have the actual comic.
Yeah.
But I'll do a lot of digital stuff now.
Oh, it's
Especially,
so much
I
cheaper,
quit.
yeah.
I also quit, and I think Mason and I have talked about this before. Doing single issues for the most part, unless it's something that I'm really into and follow,
Yeah.
like this, like
Well, it's just too expensive.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'll wait for it to come out. Like a lot of times after they finish a story, or like they'll,
Yeah.
they'll come out as a collection,
Yeah.
and I'll just buy that to read
Yeah.
through, and it's all there in one.
Yeah, it makes
But
way more sense. Yeah.
It's still.
Well, it's like binging,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that the comic industry, at least when it comes to printing things in a lot of sense, is still the same as it was,
Years ago.
Years and years ago.
Yeah.
It's something that hasn't changed much of, hey, we're going to do individual issues, and then after a while, we'll do collected issues, and then every so often, we'll reprint a new version of it all collected, and we'll just keep that kind of going.
Yeah.
I remember when we talked about the history and stuff that at one point in time, Martin Goodman, when he owned Marvel, had the mandate of like, we're not doing cliffhangers anymore. Like each issue you have to end. Yeah.
What?
It was like each issue has to be a self-contained story. We don't want people accidentally picking up issue 2 and being confused because they didn't pick up issue 1.
That's dumb.
That was back in like the 50s and stuff. And maybe
Yeah, that's
even
really
some of the
stupid
60s
though,
before
because
they could.
like, what kind of crappy story can you tell in one comic?
I don't know. But anyway, so that was Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees issue number 2. We will have issue 3 when it comes out. But yeah, something really
Yeah, it's
fun.
very
You
good
should
though.
go
It's
check it out.
very cool. Very
Yep.
well done. Yeah,
So-
I love it.
That does it for this week's episode.
That is it.
As always, we appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen. Make sure to check out all the other great podcasts on the Rogue Media family network of podcasts.
RogueMediaNetwork.com.
Nice. As always,
It's my
we
Radio
appreciate-
Row voice.
I like it though. I like it. As always, we appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen. Until next week, stay safe, everybody.
Hey, golly gone.
Frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.